Welcome to the New Mom Talk podcast, your go-to podcast for evidence-based answers to your burning questions about parenting. Join us as we dive into commonly Googled topics and hear from experts and real moms. Let's navigate parenthood together, one question at a time. Hi, everyone. Today we're going to talk about why parents should consider goat formula. So I know formula is a very big topic for parents, especially in that first year if you are choosing to go that route or having to add formula into your baby's diet. So that said, here's an alternative, which I've actually seen quite a bit of goat formula starting to pop out here and there. For this, we have Dr. Ari Brown. So I'm going to hand it over to you if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, first of all. So I am a pediatrician in private practice. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I have been an advocate for children and families beyond exam room one for the 30 years that I've been in practice. And so I write books and I do podcasts and media. And I'm out there on social media to really try to inform families so they can feel like they can make confident decisions to support their child's development and growth and feel good that they are empowered with accurate science-based information. And as part of that journey of my professional advocacy, I became very curious about infant formulas and why families were basically bootlegging European baby formula because they felt more comfortable with those products than the ones that were being sold in the US market. And so as part of that journey, I encountered this awesome product, which is Kabrita. And Kabrita is a goat milk-based baby formula that is produced in the Netherlands. And the company itself, its parent company, Osnutria, has been selling goat milk-based baby formula for over 75 years, and it's actually the number one goat milk formula worldwide. But what's new for us is that it came to the United States in 2023, and so I became part of that process as an American pediatrician, and I am their medical advisor. So I'm the medical advisor for Kabrita North America, and proudly supporting this product that's now available to American families.
Wow. Well, given that you are very much on the science background and knowledge, you are in the right place. So I want to go ahead and just jump right into it. What are some of the key nutritional benefits of goat formula compared to the traditional cow's milk formula?
I think what a lot of people find, children and adults, is that goat milk and goat products, so dairy products like cheese, some people have trouble tolerating the cow milk products, but have no trouble tolerating goat milk products. And the reason is that the protein is a little bit different and it's easier to digest.
So how does goat milk formula support digestion and help babies with sensitivities or allergies? Because I think this is like a really big topic, right? You often find that babies tend to be dairy intolerant, or if you are nursing, you find that you can't have dairy products because your baby isn't responding to them. So it's, kind of all intertwined.
Okay, well, let's do this. Let's talk about formula in general, just to kind of get everyone on the same page about what infant formula is, and then what historically we have used as bases for infant formula, and then why you have options and why you might choose different options, right? So in general, it's interesting, the history of infant formula or baby formula. The word formula, it's a chemical formula. That's why it's called formula. And so what we have learned over, centuries of tinkering with how to approximate human breast milk, right? And I'm going to say right at the outset is that the ideal nutritional product for your baby to feed your baby is breast milk, right? And so we know that and acknowledge it. And for some reasons, you may choose or you may not be able to exclusively breastfeed or breastfeed at all. And so thank goodness we have an option that is approximating human milk as much as we possibly can. But that's the creation of this formula that's got the macronutrients, so that's carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and then the micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals that you would find in human breast milk that is created in an infant formula. And so when all of these formulas started being created, mammalian milk historically is what was chosen. So cow milk was tried, goat milk was tried, camel milk, donkey milk. We have lots of different types of mammalian milks. And ultimately, the one that prevailed as the most popular one was cow milk. But it's not because it was so close to human milk. It was because it was more plentiful. And so it was less expensive, right? So that became the predominant type of base that's used. So that cow milk protein base is what we call cow milk based formula, right? And that was considered kind of a first line option. And then for families who could not tolerate or were a more plant based family that chose not to do a mammalian milk, then we had a soy base that was kind of the second line option, but acceptable across the board for the ingredients to provide growth and help your baby develop properly, right? So that said, why are we using goat milk now? Why has this become a popular choice? Well, it's all about tolerability. So just because cow milk is less expensive doesn't mean it's the better choice. And for a lot of babies, again, just like adults, they seem to tolerate goat milk and goat milk based products more readily than cow milk, and that's because of the protein composition. So now we're going to get a little sciencey. So I'm going to nerd out with you guys. So I don't want to lose you, but there are two types of proteins. So if you think about Little Miss Muffet, eating her curds and whey, those are the two types of protein. So the curds are actually casein protein that when they start to get digested in the gut, they curdle or turn into curds, right? So it kind of looks like cottage cheese, right? And then your whey is your liquid component. And so when you look at human breast milk and then you look at cow milk protein and you look at goat milk protein, the whey protein in breast milk is more similar to goat milk whey than cow milk whey. And then the type of casein proteins are slightly different, but there is more of the type of human milk casein in goat milk than in cow milk. And so the curds, when it starts to get digested, are bigger and harder when it's cow milk curd than goat milk curd, which are softer and looser and easier to digest. And so some of these tummy troubles, which this is not an allergy, by the way, and we can talk about allergies, it's different. It's more of this sensitivity or intolerance where babies are gassy and fussy and they've got, constipation. And that's the kind of stuff that when you change a baby to a goat milk based infant formula, and there are studies that show this, that the babies do better. And so those kind of fussy discomfort symptoms seem to improve. And so although it's been very popular worldwide for decades, what finally ultimately landed it on the US, store shelves is we had Kabrita actually leading the way. Kabrita is the very first European and goat milk-based infant formula to meet all FDA requirements. And they were going through this process back in 2017. It took a really long time to get through that entire FDA process. Other products actually fast-tracked because we had this huge infant formula shortage in 2022. So now we actually have a few goat milk-based infant formulas that are sold in the U.S. thanks to Kabrita leading the way and getting FDA authorization, this process. And also to that point, the American Academy of Pediatrics acknowledged that goat milk-based infant formula is a perfectly acceptable first-line nutrition, equally acceptable as cow milk or soy-based protein formulas for the first year of life. And that came out in 2023. So there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening in the past few years in U.S. infant formula markets. But that's why goat milk infant formula has been so popular worldwide and why families in the United States are seeing this as a great option too.
Are there any specific vitamins or minerals in goat milk formula that help support an infant's growth, or how would you say it's essentially I don't want to use the word better, but how does it compare to milk, to cow milk?
Yeah.
Hi everyone, it's your host Mariella. I wanted to thank you for listening and share some ways to show your continued support. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Share the show with friends and family. Buy me a coffee to help with the financial costs of running a podcast. Follow me on Instagram at newmomtalk.podcast. And finally, subscribe to my newsletter. Thank you for listening.
So when you're talking about, again, like when you're saying vitamins and minerals, you're talking about micronutrients, right? So as far as micronutrients, again, to be sold in the United States legally, you have to meet 30 infant formula nutritional requirements. So if you're looking at, vitamin D levels, or you're looking at iron, or you're looking at folic acid, which people always ask about, at least in my world, pediatricians always ask, is there enough folic acid in goat milk-based infant formula? And the answer is yes. And that is a requirement to be sold in the US. So those are all equivalent. The differences, the ingredients that really matter are the macronutrients. And so where goat milk formula is, maybe superior or a great option when a baby's not tolerating, but also a first line option, is your protein, which is different, and that we just talked about. And then the other macronutrient is the sugar. So the oligosaccharides, which are in breast milk, are called human milk oligosaccharides, or HMOs. If you look at the component of goat milk versus cow milk formula, goat milk formulas naturally have 5 times more oligosaccharides and also have a more diverse population of all. And when I say population, it's because they're actually prebiotics. So having a prebiotic in your infant formula means you're helping the baby gut microbiome grow. It's kind of the nest for the microbiome. And so that diversity and more volume of oligosaccharides that are found in goat milk infant formula is also a reason why there's an advantage to the goat milk formulas versus the cow milk formulas.
It's really interesting. With my next question, I feel like you've already kind of talked a little bit about this, but I would love if you could elaborate a little bit more on what you pediatricians or nutritionists tend to say about using goat milk formula as an alternative to the cow's milk formulas or any plant-based formulas that may be out there. I don't know that I've even seen very many.
Plant-based? Yeah. So your plant-based formulas, typically people use a soy-based infant formula. There are some, believe it or not, rice infant formulas that are out there, although not popular in the United States. Probably more to come on that. But as far as nutritionists and pediatricians, I think everybody is kind of getting up to speed in the US only because we didn't have these as options previously. And also we didn't have that basically acknowledgement from the American Academy of Pediatrics that, hey, these are all perfectly acceptable first line options. So now that we have that, we're all kind of embracing it, going, wow, now we have, different choices for families who are seeking, an alternative for whatever the reason being. And what I will say is that cow milk based, goat milk based, soy protein based, all of those are perfectly acceptable, again, for babies to grow and thrive and meet all of the nutritional requirements. When it comes to allergies, that's where you have to really be mindful. And so that's the one point that I will make, is that 97% of babies can tolerate cow milk or goat milk based infant formula or soy, but there are 3% of babies who do have a true cow milk protein allergy. And when you do have somebody who has a true allergy that's been diagnosed by the pediatrician, and that means that the baby has blood in their stool, they have a colitis situation, or they actually have a true what we call an IgE mediated, which happens less often, food allergy, where the baby gets hives or they're vomiting. Those are true allergies. And for those babies, the goat milk based protein is a little too similar for those babies to digest. And so that very small population, 3%, actually does need a hypoallergenic or elemental formula, meaning that there is not any type of cow milk protein or goat milk protein in those infant formulas.
So for parents that are considering goat milk formula, what are maybe some things that they should look for? What are some brands to kind of look into to ensure that they are getting the best nutrition for their baby? And I know that you mentioned that a lot of it that it's all FDA approved, but You hear so much about the formulas and the shortages, and there's all of this stuff going on with formulas, I feel like every few months. So, what are like the key things that a parent should really focus on when searching?
Yeah, I think and I work with families every day, and so I'm in exam room one, and I know what families worry about and what keeps them up at night, and I think that parents just want to feel confident that they're feeding their baby something that is a safe and b going to comfortably help their baby grow. And so ingredients matter. And so I would always look for a product that, when we're looking at the milk sugar, it should be lactose, it should be the legitimate sugar and not something that's an artificial ingredient. So premium ingredients matter. And I know that families are also looking for, things that are, don't have environmental contaminants in them. And so they should be able to feel confident that they can look at, and I will say Kabrita is actually very transparent. And so we have third party inspectors that regulate our products. And you can go online to our website and you can actually see the results of all of the testing, but we are clean label certified. And so I think that's an important thing for families to look at as well. So I would say ingredients matter. Look at your baby. Is your baby happy and thriving and growing, or are they having symptoms that are troublesome? Are they having frequent times where they're uncomfortable or they're gassy or they're constipated? These are things where some things are just newborn and gut immaturity, but some things actually can improve when you change the baby's diet. And so those are things to be looking for when you're choosing a product. And then the other thing is that there's absolutely no reason to go online and find some third party sketchy middleman who's going to import your baby formula from Europe. You don't need to do that. You can go, like for Kabrita, you can go to Target or Walmart, or you can buy it, or you can buy it on Amazon. There are places where you can actually buy a product that has, met all FDA requirements. And when it comes to Kabrita, has also met all of the European standards too. So those are the things that I think families have been seeking. And the good news is that we have it on our store shelves, or, something that has been officially regulated, which means it's, shipping and being distributed appropriately. And that every process has been regulated.
Thank you. And I really appreciate that you also mentioned the EU process, or that they have had to have met the EU standards, right? Because I feel like typically EU tends to have a little bit more higher standards than we do here in the US. And so a lot of people like that.
Right. I get it. And again, this was my journey, is why are people doing this? And so it was really a learning curve for me. And I understand, as a parent, you want to make sure that your baby is getting a product you can trust.
Yes. So that said, my final question, do you have any other tips, suggestions, or recommendations for any new parents out there, or any parents that are finding that their kids are really just not responding well to the current formula they're using?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've watched families do is they start going into this rabbit hole and start scrambling for this, my baby's upset, I'm going to try this formula. My baby's, whatever, you can come up with X, Y, or Z symptom, and the parent is going to go buy another product and another product, or they're going to go online and look at what other parents say, which I do think crowdsourcing can be very helpful. But at the end of the day, I actually tell people, pediatricians, this is what we're here for. So please ask us, because we can really help guide you. And a lot of times, again, some of it is just newborn gut stuff that's going to get better no matter what you do. So I always encourage families to kind of touch base with their pediatricians before they, spend so much money switching products, and also switching in a less informed way than your pediatrician can at least help guide you through some of this maze of things that actually really may be helpful. And I hate for families, especially as you mentioned, if you're breastfeeding and you're combo feeding, and then you start taking out all of these foods out of your diet. I mean, I have moms eating bread and water because they think that X, Y, or Z, made their baby fussy. And so they stop eating all these things. And I think that actually discourages moms from breastfeeding, from, limiting their diet so much when they don't need to. So before you get, too far into the rabbit hole, talk it out and troubleshoot with your pediatrician.
Yeah, very good points. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to have all of your info linked in the show notes. So if anyone wants to reach out or is interested in learning more, they can do so that way.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. You can find us on Instagram for more updates and tips. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a review if you like us.